Let me preface this by saying I've been with Finn for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was love, loyalty, and most of all, a whole lot of patience. And when I say patience, I mean I have been the one financially supporting him while he bounced between passion projects. First, there was the YouTube channel he was convinced would blow up, despite never gaining more than 200 subscribers. He swore he'd be bigger than PewDiePie. Spoiler, he wasn't. Then came the NFT craze. He insisted he was ahead of the curve. Spoiler, he wasn't. And let's not forget his brief stint trying to make it big in crypto, which ended with him losing most of his savings. Meanwhile, guess who was holding things down? Mortgage? Me. Utilities? Me. Groceries? Me. Car payments? You guessed it, me. Finn was the dreamer, and I was, well, I guess I was the idiot who kept believing in those dreams. Every time he'd come to me with a new idea, his eyes lighting up with excitement, I'd push down my doubts and support him. This time will be different, he'd say, and like a fool, I believed him. But things started getting weird about 2 weeks ago. Finn got distant, spent more time glued to his phone, started making these odd comments about needing space to grow and finding himself. At first, I didn't think much of it. He tends to get all philosophical right before launching into another doomed venture. Then, the comments about the house started. That was new. He'd make these passive-aggressive remarks about unwashed dishes or unfolded laundry, his tone weirdly judgmental, which was rich, coming from a man who once considered rearranging the bookshelf a full day's work. Then, last week, I got home from work and found him sitting at our kitchen table with a serious expression on his face. A look I'd only seen a handful of times before, usually when he was about to announce yet another failed business idea. But this time, what came out of his mouth made me feel like I had slipped into a parallel universe. "I think we should break up," he said. "You don't do enough around the house." I actually laughed. I thought he was joking. But he didn't crack a smile. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. This man, this grown adult man whom I had been mothering for 6 years, was accusing me of not contributing enough? When I asked him to clarify, because surely I had misheard, he doubled down. "You never clean up after yourself, and I feel like I do all the emotional labor around here. I'm always the one who has to point out when things need to be done." Let me paint you a picture. I work insane hours to keep us afloat while he stays home, brainstorming his next big move. Yes, sometimes I'm too exhausted to do the dishes immediately or fold the laundry the second it's done. Sometimes I leave my coffee mug on the counter or forget to put my shoes away. But you know what I do? Pay every single bill. That keeps our roof over his head and food in his fridge. Meanwhile, Finn's biggest contribution to the household has been reorganizing the bookshelf 3 times and throwing out perfectly good Tupperware because it didn't spark joy. This is the same man who has a meltdown if the Wi-Fi goes out for more than 5 minutes. Guess who calls the provider every single time? Me. Birthdays? Holidays? Weekend plans? Me. Ordering takeout? He asks for my input 3 times and still manages to get my order wrong. But here's where things go from ridiculous to completely unhinged. After dropping his little breakup bombshell, Finn started acting like the house was already his. He actually had the nerve to say, "This will be a good reset for both of us." And then, get this, suggested I could move back in with my mom or something. So get this. My ex-boyfriend, Finn, actually thought he could kick me out of my own house. After he broke up with me, out of nowhere, mind you, he started talking about how he was going to turn the guest room into his office and maybe even get a dog, since there won't be anyone to complain about the hair anymore. That's when it hit me. This man genuinely forgot, or maybe never even realized, whose name is actually on the deed to this house. Spoiler, it's not his. Not even close. This house was my inheritance from my grandparents. I'm the sole owner. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every utility bill, it's all in my name. So I excused myself, went upstairs, and locked myself in our bedroom. I wasn't about to argue with him. I wasn't going to waste my energy trying to change his mind. Nope. I was going to let him sit in his little delusion for as long as he wanted. Let him think he was winning this breakup. Let him think I was the one packing my bags. because Finn had no idea what was coming. A few days later, his delusion hit a new level. Not only was he still lounging around like he owned the place, but he actually started telling me what I needed to pack so I could leave in an orderly way. Meanwhile, I was just sitting back, sipping my coffee, waiting to see how far he'd take it. Then one night, Finn casually mentioned that he was having a friend over. He barely looked at me, just muttered something about how I needed to respect his space. Respect his space. In my house. I just nodded, thinking, oh, this should be good. So when the doorbell rang, I opened it to find a woman standing there, bright smile, bottle of wine in hand. Her name was Mila. She was perfectly nice, polite even, but it didn't take a detective to realize this wasn't just a friend. The way she looked at Finn? Oh yeah, they were very much together. And Finn? Oh, he was on one. He barely acknowledged me as he led Mila through the house, my house, giving her the grand tour like he was some kind of real estate mogul. This is the living room. I've been thinking about getting a new couch, something more modern, you know? This is the kitchen. I love the open layout. It's great for hosting. This is my office, where I do most of my work these days. That last one almost made me choke. Work? This man hasn't had a job since 2018. The office he was referring to? The spare bedroom I set up for him to maybe do some freelance projects, which mostly just turned into his Fortnite cave. And Mila? She was eating it up. I could see it in her eyes. She was imagining herself settling in, decorating, living her Pinterest-perfect dream. Meanwhile, I was standing in the kitchen, gripping my coffee mug so hard I thought it might crack. I had two options. 1, blow up and let them both have it. 2, play it cool and let Finn dig his own grave. I chose option 2. The entire night, Finn acted like he had already moved on and was just graciously allowing me to stay until I figured things out. At one point, he even pulled me aside and said, I think it's best if we start working on a timeline for when you'll be out. No rush, of course, but Mila and I need to start planning. Planning? What? A housewarming party? In my living room? I just smiled and said, oh, don't worry about me. I'm handling everything. You should have seen his face. So smug. He really thought he had won. The next morning, I made my move. While Finn was still asleep, I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. Took less than an hour. I paid him, thanked him, and sat down with a cup of tea to wait. When Finn finally woke up and strolled into the kitchen like he owned the place, I casually told him, by the way, I had the locks changed this morning. You'll need to grab your things and be out by the end of the day. The panic on his face. He went pale. What do you mean you changed the locks? You can't do that. Oh, I absolutely can. This is my house, remember? It's in my name. You're not on the deed. You're not on the mortgage. And now, you're not welcome here. He tried to argue. He tried to plead. At one point, he even tried to guilt trip me. I thought you loved me. I thought we were building something together. Mila showed up in the middle of all this, probably expecting another cozy evening with her man. Instead, she walked into absolute chaos. Finn packing his things while I stood there, arms crossed, reminding him not to forget his gaming chair. Mila looked so confused. Wait, this isn't your house? Finn didn't even try to answer. By the end of the day, Finn was gone. Mila was gone. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down on the couch Finn had wanted to replace, and just breathed. I had come way too close to losing everything because I was too generous with my time, my money, and my patience. Never again. Oh, and in case anyone's wondering, Finn is now couch surfing. Mila dumped him too when she realized he was unemployed, broke, and basically homeless. Karma is a beautiful thing. But wait, there's more. A few days later, I got a call from our mutual friend, Caleb. I could tell he was fishing for something, so I asked, "Did Finn send you?" He hesitated, then spilled the beans. Turns out, Finn had been planning this breakup for months. He had been telling everyone, friends, acquaintances, even his family, that he was about to take over the house and start his new chapter. He painted himself as the long-suffering boyfriend who had put up with my nagging for years. According to him, the house was basically his because of all the work he put into making it a home. I had to pause Caleb there because I was laughing so hard I almost choked. What work? This man barely did his own laundry. I asked Caleb if Finn ever mentioned the tiny detail that the house was actually mine. He said, "You'd probably just leave," when he asked, and if you didn't, he'd figure it out. Oh, Finn. Sweet, delusional Finn. Apparently, Finn was so confident that I'd just hand over the house that he actually threw himself a little victory lap before the breakup. He told people he was finally free to focus on his life, and even made plans to host a housewarming party. Again, in my house. The audacity. But the part that really pissed me off, he had been downplaying everything I did for him, telling people I barely paid the bills, that he was the one holding things together. This was the same man who didn't even know how much the mortgage was. At first, I thought about letting it go. Finn was out of my life. The house was mine. I could finally move on. But then I remembered all the crap he put me through. The years of freeloading, the manipulation, the smear campaign. No, I wasn't gonna let it slide. Final update, Finn's last stand. So remember how I said Finn wasn't done trying to get his house back? Yeah. Grab your popcorn because this story just hit a whole new level of ridiculous. Last week, I was having lunch with my sister, Nora, when I noticed she kept checking her phone and giving me these weird looks, like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Finally, I just asked her what was up. "Don't be mad," she started, which is never a good sign. But Finn reached out to me last week. I nearly spat out my drink. What? Turns out, Finn has been going around telling anyone who will listen that we had some sort of verbal agreement about the house. According to him, we were practically married. We weren't. And he contributed significantly to the household. He didn't. But here's the real kicker. He asked Nora for money. Not just a little. He wanted enough to get back on his feet and fight for what's rightfully his. And she gave it to him. Before you grab your pitchforks, let me explain. Nora and I have always been close, and she's usually the smartest person I know. But Finn apparently fed her this sob story about how he'd invested everything into our relationship and was now homeless because of me. He even showed her screenshots of some bills he'd paid years ago, conveniently leaving out the fact that he paid them with my money. I felt bad for him, Nora admitted, looking guilty. He was living in his car, and he seemed so sure about everything he said. He just needed enough to get started again. I sat there trying to process this betrayal. "How much did you give him?" She mumbled into her coffee. $2,000. I was about to lose it, but then Nora pulled out her phone and showed me their text conversation. As I read through it, I realized something. My sister might be smarter than I thought. See, she hadn't just given him the money. She made him sign a proper IOU, complete with repayment terms and interest. She even got him to put his car up as collateral. When I asked her why she went through all that trouble for a small loan, she just smiled. "Because I knew he was full of it," she said. "I wanted proof of exactly how desperate he was getting. Plus, I figured having a document showing he had to borrow money might come in handy later." I could have hugged her right then, but the story gets even better. Remember Caleb? The mutual friend who spilled the beans about Finn's pre-breakup plotting? Well, he sent me screenshots of Finn's social media posts. And oh boy, Finn has been painting himself as the victim of a calculated gold digger who trapped him in a relationship just to steal his future earnings. Yes, you read that right. He thinks I spent 6 years supporting his unemployed ass because I was after his future money. The money he was definitely going to make from all those failed projects I funded. The posts were full of vague accusations about how I manipulated him and took advantage of his trusting nature. According to Finn's new version of events, he was the one who supported me emotionally while I was unstable and unable to maintain healthy relationships. This is coming from the man who once had a 3-hour meltdown because I bought the wrong brand of energy drink. But here's where it gets really interesting. My friend Zoe has been keeping track of everyone Finn has reached out to, and apparently he's been telling different stories to different people. To some, he's the victim of a manipulative ex. To others, he's a generous partner who gave up everything for me. And to a few, He's claiming we had some sort of business partnership that I betrayed. The stories keep getting more elaborate too. Last week, he told someone I had promised to put his name on the deed as a birthday gift, but then changed my mind out of spite. Pretty creative for someone who once forgot my birthday entirely, because he was too busy trying to become a Twitch streamer. Then yesterday, I got a series of increasingly unhinged messages from him about how he's going to expose me. Expose me for what? Exactly? Who knows? I'm genuinely curious what secrets he thinks he has on me, considering I'm the one who knows about 1. His failed cryptocurrency investments. 2. That time he tried to become a professional dog photographer using my camera. 3. The fact that he never actually finished any of his million-dollar ideas. I haven't responded to his messages, but I've saved them all. Something tells me this isn't over yet. Finn's never been good at accepting reality, and now that he's burned through Nora's money, probably on another get-rich-quick scheme, I'm sure he's cooking up some new plan to get what he thinks he deserves. And I was right. Last update, Finn's GoFundMe scam. So last Sunday, I was doing my weekly grocery shopping when I literally ran into Finn's mom. I tried to smile and walk past, but she grabbed my cart and said, "We need to talk." Now, Finn's mom has always been sweet to me, even after everything. But this time, she looked different, worried, and also angry. We grabbed coffee and she took a deep breath before saying, "I need to tell you what Finn's been up to, because this has gone too far." Turns out, Finn had shown up at his parents' house last week with this elaborate story about how he was getting the house back. According to him, he had evidence that I had somehow tricked him into putting all the bills in my name. He even claimed he had proof that he gave me cash for the down payment. His mom stopped him right there. "Finn, we were there when she bought the house, before you even moved in." But he just talked over her, rambling about how he was building a case and needed to borrow money to set things right. When his parents refused, he lost it, started ranting about how they never supported his dreams and were choosing my side over their own son. And then, she pulled out her phone and showed me a GoFundMe page. The title? "Help Local Man Reclaim His Home from Manipulative Ex." I nearly choked on my coffee. The page was full of completely made-up stories about how he'd invested his life savings into the house, what savings, and how I manipulated the paperwork to cut him out. And people were actually donating. Not a lot, but enough that Finn thought his plan was working. He'd raised about $800 before his mom reported the page and got it taken down. "I had to do something," she said. "He needs to face reality." And then she told me the best part. They're changing their locks, cutting off his Wi-Fi access, and they've given him a choice. Take a real job with his uncle in another state, or figure it out alone. Finn finally ran out of bridges to burn. And I finally feel free.